Good day, good morning, good evening, and good night. This is your boy Dean White, Blind Visioneer, on another exciting episode of the Real Talk podcast where everyone issue seriously matters. Welcome to chapter or episode 69 of the Real Talk podcast. But before we get into our discussion, let's say a word of prayer. Holy, wonderful, and compassionate Father, Lord God of hosts, thank you for life. Thank you for bringing us into another day of your grace and mercies. Thank you for everything that you have done for us so far, Almighty God, and what you continue to do. Forgive us of our sins, transgressions, and iniquities against you. Cover my children under your blood, Almighty God, and let my household be safe. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, who is our Lord and soon coming King, we pray. Amen. Now, I must say, thanks for coming back to this episode of the Real Talk podcast, guys. We were in some discussions from episode 68, and I must say, I will conclude the discussion in episode 69, or I will at least try to. But if you watch episode 68 of the Real Talk podcast, you would be able to understand what I am speaking about in this episode of Real Talk 69. Now, I must say this to say when I invited my baby mother, no wife, to live at the premises with me, I was very excited. I really was feeling great because I have been away from my father's house for a period of years now, and I was living at Mountain View, and no one visited me there from my family side except my brother who was in a certain area, where he had certain friends and so on. And, I lived at that house in Stony Hill. And while living there, my wife came. And at the time, as I told you, she was my child's mother. I realized that the area was very, very cold or cool. I wanted to think. I really liked the climate. The area was cold in such a way that when we awoke in the morning, you could not see what was in front of you because the fog was right down on the ground. That was how cold the area was. The fog was right down on the ground, guys. And then at times, when the sun got real hot, the place got so hot that, tarpaulins would be damaged and the zinc roof would be pushing a lot of heat inside that house. But at the same time, we could just walk out that house and go on the hillside, and we would be in areas that were cool. But we were not the type who try to leave out of the house very often. Because let me tell you, at that point in our life, we were persons who were very, very loving, and we love, to have intercourse. We were like rabbits, We believed that we were our own people. We were together enjoying each other, We were sending our children to school, taking care of our baby and all of that. So we didn't really um, like to leave the house very much. I must say, it's not that we did not even leave it though, because we left and we go on the road to buy ice cream, or we would go to pick um, jackfruit or so on, you know. And from time to time, I would maybe take my family down to halfway tree or even Constant Spring, and we would, go to sit down and enjoy some KFC, and we would go to the ILO and buy our favorite bread, and we went to places like Island Grill and Mother's to get some Mother's Stout ice cream, and we were just enjoying life and doing all that. While we were doing all this, the house that we were living in started deteriorating more, and the owner for the house did not decide to fix the house. Instead, she raised the rent for the house. When she raised the rent for the house, based on the fact that I still did not want to move to have to pay fear to go to the location that I was working, I calculated, and when I calculated, I realized that I would still be saving money if I pay the raise in the rent. I started paying the raise in that rent, and the owner for the house had her family started buying materials, and they started building a separate dwelling right on the side of the house. Now, when they started this dwelling, I was informed that when it was finished, we would have to move over into that dwelling so they could work on the location that we were presently living in. And we were thinking to ourselves that, okay, that's something that we can work with, because they had informed us that they wanted to deck the top of the house and all of that, and they would have to put column right here and so on. And I was like, okay, at least they were making some effort to address the situation that we were in. Now, they completed the area that they were building, tile it, window, doors, everything. And completed, after they completed that area, what they did was they locked the area up. And from time to time, another family member was seen coming to sleep in that area and left when he wanted. At the time, I was complaining still about our living conditions, and we were told that don't worry, it was going to be addressed. Now, by this time, we started experiencing some problems where we had some very huge rats that were the size of mongoose or cats living in the roof. The property also had a bamboo walk close by, and because of that, we had some very, very big bullhunts that left the bamboo walk and decided to take the house as their nest. So when it reached any hours after 6, these bullhunts, which were very big, would decide to take control of the entire house. They would start crawling on the wall, and sometimes, let me tell you, they were so plenty that at one point I thought to myself that would not be able to see the paint that was on the wall based on the amount of ants that was there. And they started to get into my child's ear. And let me tell you this, I complained and I got no response. I had to start killing these ants with water, because when they take over the entire outside of the house, I had to make sure that we keep washing them and killing them, washing them and killing them. So we had to start going around and crushing these ants using our fingers and crush them, crush them. When we finished crushing ants, sometimes we had thousands of ants. When we finished crushing ants and sweeping out, and they just kept coming, we started realizing that, listen, we needed somewhere to live. But I made up my mind that I was now going to join an RBTT partner. And I went and started that partner. And when I started that partner, right, I continued to throw. It was for 6 months. I threw that partner, and I was throwing $4,000 per fortnight. No, that wasn't it. I was throwing $2,000 per fortnight, and it was every 6 months. So when I threw the first 6 months, I got 24,000. And that 24,000, what I did, I fixed that 24,000, and I threw for another 6 months. I threw that partner. And after throwing that partner for the other 6 months, it accumulated up to 48,000, and I got a $4,000 interest on that 48, which made it 52,000 when I took the money in the form of a manager's check from the RBTT bank. But before we get there, let's explain. When I started experiencing the issues with the ants, it was now a time that a lot of water, which means rain, was coming down, and the ants decided that they were not going to stay in the bamboo anymore, and they took over the house. I realized that the rats were also having water problem, and they decided to come down into the house as well. So now we could see them. We not only hear them, but now we saw them. Okay. I bought a rat trap, and I set food on that trap. And the trap was medium in size. And I must say, when that rat trap fly and hit these rats, the rats were so big at times that they would be bleeding, and they would be running with the traps on their neck. And because the trap was so big, wherever they tried to get through, they could not. After the trap hit them, at times when the trap fly, if I was at home, I had to go inside there and get a machete to chop those rats the way all the rats were big, right? When I saw this situation that we were in and realizing that the landlord, no matter how we spoke to her, she was just moving at a snail's pace. She was not doing anything to address our situation, and the new dwelling that she made was for one of her family members. It got me a bit upset. I also realized that one of her family members was getting fresh with my wife to the point where he was telling her about he wanted to buy sex from her, and my wife had to put him in his place, you know, and it became an issue because now they know that she was not that sort of person, and to them, oh, this a pretty woman, yeah, them have to thump up. And I was of the view that if any such activity was done, I was going to analyze persons that were involved, whether it was by force or something willingly. Now, they knew that I was not joking, I was a serious person, and they avoided my family. And because of this, they thought to themselves that they could spite us by, doing that. I also remember that the landlord came, and one time when she came, she made me a proposition. And the proposition was that she and I could be sex partners. I informed her that I did not think of her in that manner, and I would not disrespect my child's mother in any way, shape, or form. It made her more determined to spite me in any way that she could. So while I was living there under all this condition, I was told that everything will be addressed, but yet still nothing was done. I remember one morning when my boy, who was about a year or a little less, now creeping, was on the floor. A worm came out from between the crack, a very long worm, and my baby picked that worm up and was about to put the worm in his mouth when his mother saw and boxed the worm out of his hand. And when I saw that, I decided that, listen, nothing is going to stop me from obtaining my own home, whether purchasing it on the open market, whether going to the trust, right, or not. And during this period of time, I started to speak to the woman that I was working with. I went to her and asked her if she could possibly sell me a board dwelling that she had on a property, because the person that she had living there had died, and the dwelling was left unoccupied, and the yard was growing, you know, troubles all about. And I believed to myself that if I was to acquire that place, would have been a very nice place for myself. But it was in an area that was purchased by a lot of rich persons. To show you how rich these persons were. Edward Siaga family lived at the area at the time. Okay. Now, when I spoke to the lady I was working with, she embarrassed me in such a way that I felt determined to prove to everyone that no one would stop me from acquiring my own home to make sure that my wife and children were properly situated, had their own foundation, and they were well off. Okay, it made me more determined because she used a statement that said, ho ho ho. She laughed and she said, as long as I was alive, I would never be able to obtain my own home or own a piece of land. And when she said that, I felt it to my core because she was now stating to me that she was my God. And because she knows all and can do all, I was never going to amount to anything in life. And she made a comment that made me realize that, listen me, I was sleeping and I needed to wake up. I must tell you that when she made this comment and I started looking at what we were going through at that dwelling, right? I decided to myself that, listen, I was going to continue working with the situation, but only for a time. I gave myself a few years, okay, to work with the situation because at the time I decided that I was not going to continue to pursue obtaining my own place. I remember when I went back to the National Housing Trust, they said to me that, listen, you have been here before and we told you that your point was not sufficient, but are you paying contributions? And I said, yes, I was. They said, are you sure the contribution was coming over? And I said, as far as I know, because I pay it every month, so it should be coming over. They asked me if I had any payslip, and I pulled some forward and I showed them. When I showed them the latest payslip, they were like, well, we have not seen these payments as yet. And they informed me that I should go to my office and get a letter of the contribution that they deducted so far for the year and take back to them. When I went to the office and informed the personnel what they needed, and they gave me that letter, I took it back to the NHD. When I went back to the NHD looked at the list, they checked, and where the contribution was not there, they informed me that, listen, they are going to send an officer down to address the situation. So I should give them some time. They will call me as soon as it was sorted out. I remember waiting for about 2 months. And after waiting, I did not receive that call. And I thought to myself that, listen, if 2 months pass and them not call me, it was because at the time I did not have any cell phone service because at the time the cell phone situation was not great, and I decided that I would go back down to the NHT. And when I went down back to the NHT, they stated that yes, the contributions were now there, and I was now eligible to access benefits from the trust. When they said that, I was so happy. Now, during this period of time, I decided that, okay, I will go ahead with trying to obtain an house. But when they told us the price for the one bedroom houses and where the houses were, they informed us that they were in Longville Park and Mineral Heights. Now, when we checked on the house that they spoke about, it was just a room, and at the time, we considered those rooms to be what we used to call matches box. That was how we titled these houses. And I must tell you that we decided that I was not going to take any of these houses because they were not big enough. And I was looking at it that if I was to take one of these dwellings, while I was living inside there, I'd have to be paying back the mortgage from my salary. So I would not have anything saved to purchase material to do any form of addition. So, because of this, in my mind, I decided that it's best to purchase a piece of land. When I checked and decided to go the land route, they informed us that the land was 500 and something thousand, 530 something thousand. And I had to pay like the moratorium fee and all of that. When it was done, it was way up into almost 600,000. Okay. When they inform us about this, they ask where would I like to choose the land from, and I said Mineral Heights because Mineral Heights was closer to Mapen. But for some reason, the day I went over to Mineral Heights, the rain fell, and I realized that the piece of land that was available was a pond. Okay, it was where all the water went to settle, and I opted not to purchase that. Went to Longville, and when I came to Longville, I picked 5 pieces of land that I wanted to choose from. And when I went back to the trust and showed them, they informed me that none of those 5 pieces were available because other persons have already selected them, and they made me aware of what was available. And I selected this piece that I am now on. Now, when I selected this piece of land, it was approximately 2003, right? And at the time, they informed me that the moment I did any form of payment on the land, it was now my duty to pay the tax. It was not the NHT responsibility anymore to make tax payment. Now, I started the process from down in 2002 or 2001. And 2003, I was just making payment on the land. 2003. No, sorry about that, guys. It was 2002 July when I made payment on the land. 2003, I now was doing interview for obtaining some money or some more money from the NHT towards constructing a dwelling, which means a house on the land. Now, understand this. 2002 and 2003, the amount that NHT was giving persons as money towards purchasing or buying your own home or so on was 800,000. It was not even $1 million. Okay. I must say the land itself was 500,000. So you would know that the 500,000 from the 800,000 would have left 300,000. Okay. Now, based on that money, you'd have known that building a house, we would have to be making sure that money that we had saved would have to now come into play. We did not have sufficient amount. And when I put my head down and my wife decided that, listen, we had to deal with this because we have started a process that we must complete it. And we start to pool money and so on. We had a lot of things to deal with. Purchasing the land was great, and the money I took from the RBTT account and I paid the down payment. Okay. And I had to start now accumulating money to make payments. And now remember that because I have went ahead and paid the down payment, land tax was now my responsibility. Apart from that, now understand, even though we purchased the land and they said that, yes, this is the land and this piece of land is the land, I had to go back now to get a surveyor to come and survey the land, remark the land, label the land that this was the land, and this is, and that cost at the time anywhere between 10 and 15,000 it was. After doing that, I then had to go to the parish council and paid someone there to put the plan that I draw for the land on the blueprint, because they gave me a pre-approved plan to build the house with, and that was not going to make it because that pre-approved plan had a 5 by 5 bathroom on it. The tub, the toilet, and the face basin was like at the same place. Every turn you was bouncing on one of them. And I could not live in that bathroom based on how cramped it was. And at the time, the room size was 10 by 10, and I thought to myself, no way could I live in that room because there would be no space for the closet. And I went ahead and I drew 3 houses in my book. And I went to my wife and I said to her, look at these 3 houses. And she was asking, what was this and that? And I was explaining to her, this was 1 bedroom, This was a bathroom inside the bedroom here. This was another bedroom down here. This was a bathroom right here. So this, you could walk through this wall here, which is the hole that I left for the door, and go into that bathroom there. And and I was showing her. I also showed her another drawing that I made, a passage that would have started at the front of the house, and then you enter. When you turn on the right, you went into one bedroom. When you go down into that passage, right, you would pass a blank area there. And when you go down more and turn on the right again, you've gone into bedroom number two. Okay, and when you went straight down on the right still, you then enter into the washroom. Now, the blank area that was on the side where the bedroom was, when you pass the first bedroom, that was where a master bathroom was. And in my drawing, and that master bathroom had two doors from the bedroom. You have to be inside that bedroom to go into that bathroom. Okay, so you would leave the bedroom, go into the bathroom from that bedroom, and you could leave from the other bedroom and go into that bathroom. The difference is that two doors would have been on the bedroom to enter into the bathroom. Okay, while everything like the living room, the veranda, the kitchen was now on the other side of the passage. Okay, my wife did not like that design either. This design that we have here was what she stated that she loved and liked, and I had to take it to the parish council and had the gentleman put it on the blueprint. During that time, in that year, it cost me $24,000 to put my drawing on the blueprint because I was not a registered architect, and the person at the parish council had to do it, had to do my electrical, you know, and so on. After all that was done, I was calculating how to spend the little money that I had because I was thinking that as soon as I collect the rest of the money that was the construction portion of the loan, I would have to start building, but I needed to make sure that I built something that we were able to live in so we could move from that rent house and we would not have to be paying rent while paying mortgage at the same time. It so happened that a lot of things started coming up during the same period. The land got bush up back with some trees growing on it, and I had to now start working money to pay the tractor to remove the trees that were growing up. Okay, I remember that at the time there was an issue with cows, and the cows keep stepping on the pipe, the water pipe, bursting the pipe, and water commission decided that I would have to pay for the water that was wasted, right? Because it was on the property, and that was another issue. I remember that we started experiencing issues that had to deal with money. every issue that we started experiencing how was only able to be solved with money. During this period of time, my father find himself coming to visit me and my wife at the place that we were living. Now, when he came, my wife was pregnant at the time, and one of my son was 3 years old, or 2 years and something, and he came with a few of my other family members, which means some uncles, you know, and they came to visit. And when he came and visited us, they stepped into the house and they were, wow, go on and everything. And I remember my father said to my wife, now make the boy breathe here again. And when he said that, I remember the Spirit saying to me, he wouldn't mind getting the chance to do it for me. And I must say, I pushed the thought out of my head immediately, and didn't bother to pay what he said any mind. Okay, guys, didn't bother to pay what he said any mind. And they were there with us for a while, and we have to drink and what have you. And I told him that, some in a roll, so. So if anything, and some fruit juice or some water. You understand me? Anyway, they, did their thing and they drink some fruit juice and, there was no liquor, no rum, nothing. I didn't even know they were coming, so I wasn't preparing for anyone. Okay? Now, remember, I was the one who told them where I lived, and they found the location, right? But I didn't even know that they were going to come. When he came and he said to me, say, you mean see, say, the place no stay good because the house look like, I said to him, say, true, daddy. But right now, I kind of have something in the works, I have something in process. Man say, what you talk about? Me, I make him know, say, well, right now, I go to the house in trust already and sort out something with them way, buy a piece of land in a Clarendon and I go construct my own house and ray and ray. When I said that, I remember the man turning to me and saying, yo, there you go. No bother with them foolishness there, No bother go on a Clarendon go build nothing, man. Just take the money from the trust and come over Portmore back a yard, man. Come build up the back and go upstairs, the man, and rear, and And I must say, at the time when he spoke, it sounded very good because he was speaking like a conscious person without any alcohol in his system. Yeah, man, just line up your money, man, and come below the back, man, and then go upstairs, man. Ray, and when he was speaking this way, I said to myself, whoa, that sounds like my father. But I said to him, understand what you said, daddy, but we get back to you, man. You don't know. I remember when they left, and I sit down and examine what was said. He looked at my wife or my baby mother and said, don't allow the boy to breathe again in a daughter. And with the same breath, he might tell me if he take the housing trust money come build up field place when he was the one who continued to sing, Mother have, Father have, happy the child that have his own. Back at that, he disrespected me in front of my wife on many occasions. And even though he was my father and I did not have any malice, I marked those attitude and behavior and realized to myself that if I was someone who was living around him, I would have no peace. I would have to settle for being a idiot in my own castle, not a king. I would be an idiot because at the end of the day, he would be the one that holds the handle, and he would be the one that dictates and determines what took place. He could still come and tell me and my wife that, listen, this son of we place. If we come out and place because a fee money by this, we take we money about we are come build this and build that, and he never tell we for this and he never, and he could have disrespected us in that way, shape and form. At the same time, I remember looking at the situation that this man loved my wife so badly that he was willing to destroy my relationship with my wife with his bag of argument and dirty behavior. And at the same time, he opened his mouth and I could tell my wife, say she not fi allow me to breathe her again. As if he was my wife and it was him I was getting pregnant. And when I think about these things, I realize that I should maybe leave Clarendon and go as far as Westmoreland because I needed to get some more distance from him. Even though I told him, right, that I would speak to him, I didn't relent. I didn't look back. I didn't even bother to put what he said in my mind, right? I continued doing what I was doing, okay? And I decided and purposely decided in my mind that I was never going to have any form of living arrangement with my father. If I even had something going on and I needed some help, I might have asked him, but I wasn't ever going to move back into that house. I remember my father, even though he spoke to me right after this house was constructed, I realized that he was very disappointed in the decision that I made. Let me tell you what I was talking about. When he spoke to me and I told him that I would get back to him, he expected that because I was his son and I always listened to him, I would have gone to the trust and informed them that, I would do the construction where he was and so on. When I did not bother to even link him, right, he was not pleased. Okay? I went by to visit him to introduce, you know. As a matter of fact, not even introduce. Um, I took the grandchildren, right, to visit him because when he came up to Stony Hill, one was born and the other one was in the belly. So when the other one was born, I took that child over to Portmore to visit him. And I must say, he played with the child and was very nice to the child and everything. But I knew he was disappointed in me for not coming over to Bill to the point where he said to me that um, next year him going to have back in title and he was going to give me the house because him lend my sister it for sort out something, but by next year she go finish pay off what she for pay for and him get back in title and him go just write over the house to me because me and him son and him never give me nothing yet and what have you. And I was like, why is my father telling me all this? And he knew that I told him what I was doing. And I realized that to him, he was thinking that maybe I was still living at Stony Hill and he wanted to butter me up to, come to that conclusion that I was going to build. Right? He didn't even ask me where we were living. He didn't ask me that. But at the same time, I must tell you that I was still living in Stony Hill. So to him, I was living there and I wasn't going to move. And he was telling me all that I needed to hear in order to draw me back in. You understand me? In order for me to fall back in that same trap where he could then speak to me anyhow, disrespect me in any way, shape, or form or manner, and there would be no repercussion due to the fact that he was my father. You understand? I continued to build this house, and right now, I am going to tell you something, guys. And believe me when I tell you see, building a house is not an easy feat. It is a very, 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 very good experience to have. But never you decide to build a house and build it without proper supervision. I will tell you why I say that. This house is built and it is built properly. But at the same time, I can tell you that what this house cost me to complete was way more than it would have cost if I was someone who stayed on site, lived on site, and monitored every single thing that was going on here while this house was being constructed. Now, I am not going to scare anyone, but I am going to give you a layout and show you a few things. Show you things that are facts that I went through, and after going through all that, I realized that listen, You have to know what you're doing when constructing a house. And if you do not know, you are going to have to learn the hard way, and it is going to cost us. Okay? Now, please understand, when I acquired the construction loan for this property, I was so glad. It was as if I was the richest and happiest person alive. And the moment the ground was broken, I started to experience challenges. I was experiencing challenges before, that caused me hemorrhaging money, But I did not know that building on your own land was so difficult. Now, understand, let me speak to you about this. Apart from coming out of my pocket to pay the surveyor's identification report, when to me it was not necessary because the housing trust had already identified the piece of land that was the plot of land that I owned and that I purchased. And when I asked them, why should I pay for a surveyor's identification report and do it all over again? They were like, you wouldn't want to start constructing on the land, and when you start, you find out say somebody else land you are constructed on. And I was like, how would that be possible when you were the ones who give me this land, saying that it is this and this number? If that was the case, it would have meant that you were the one who was responsible. So they would have to, deal with the consequences of that, not me. They informed me that they don't business with it. So I had to pay for the surveyor's identification report, even though I had already gotten a paper stating that this was the land, that was that number. Okay? Now, after doing the report and everything, I was told that I have to pay for the excavation out of my pocket. I said to them, what? They informed me that the excavation and the foundation had to came out of my pocket. The first money that they were going to give me was going to be of a certain sum, and that money would have been to purchase the material, to cast the foundation and block it up to window height. But the excavation, which meant the digging out of the ground and the mixing of the material to cast the foundation, I had to pay that from my pocket. I must tell you guys that at that point, I was like saying, I spent so much money dealing with plans, quantity surveyors report, surveyors identification report, going back and forth from Kingston to Clarendon, that I don't think when I am finished I'm going to have any money to build the property. When I call the tractor man who was a friend of mine, because I used him to clear the trees off the land and so on, he gave me a price to do the excavation. And when he gave me that price and I spoke to him, he said to me that the only reason why he gave me that price was because me and him, I were good together, right? I said to him, but why was this price that you gave me so steep? And he informed me that he's going to tell me the truth. He said to me that no man is going to be able to do the excavation for the house on that land because the land had a flat rock under it. And because of that, they are not going to be able to cut into the flat rock with picker. And that was the reason why he was charging that amount. And let me tell you, I did not even believe the man. And me I said to myself, say, all right, me call you. That was what I said to him. I'll call you when we're ready. And so said, I took a piece of steel and beat it down into the ground. And the steel was just going down into the ground as if there was nothing to resist. And I thought to myself, then, oh, you say it a flat rock, right? But for some reason, the Holy Spirit said to me, just make the tractor man do the excavation, just pay him, make him do it. See, after me lick down the steel in the ground and realize the steel just a go and can't stop on nothing. When the man come, I said to him, say, listen, I want you to take off some of the soil off of the top and pile it up in a pile at the back here because I'm going to need it for dump up at the inside because I need for ice the floor level of the land higher than the level of the outside, right? Because I don't want when rain fall or anything, the house, the flooring is so low that water can come in or anything like that. And the man grade off the land with the tractor first and pile up the dirt at the back. And then now the man them come and set out the board, the farm work. And when them set out the farm work, the tractor man come back the following day and him start to cut. And so said, so done. You see, when him reach up to the back and start cut, there was the flat rock. And he had to use the bucket and a cutting of the flat rock. He must scrape it couple time, and scrape it till him get a groove down in it. At one point, when him done scrape it, one of the teeth then broke off of the thing. You know? Eventually, he did that. So you know, so me lose a nice piece of money already because the excavation was done, right? Now when me line up the man them for cast the foundation, before me even line up the man them for cast the foundation, you see a man them when me hire with a board up the place and ready for the tractor cut. Them man they have to bring a steel man, so the steel man a tie up the cage them. Them have to bring, you know, all the necessary personnel. So you find out, say, right away, the man them a make me know, say, yeah, the steel man money are this, the mace money are gonna be that, and, you know, the laborer money are this, man we are mixed match, so me say, yeah, well, then I don't worry about talking with nobody, you know, I have a contractor to deal with this thing, so when I deal with the contractor tell me how much he might go want for the foundation. I take out a little chumps there out of my little smalls and give them. When it done set, right, a time for run block. I am not here because I work in Kingston, live in Kingston, them start run block. But them start to run black. Them run black to a certain level. Them call me and make me know say bossy. Black went up, reach up to window height now, and fortnight now, money have to run pan Ray because man have to go back to work come back to work next week and pick me up to go school and Ray. It so happened that when them say window height and what have you, me come, me check, me realize, say, alright, thing build up, things are going, place reach at a point, feel good in myself. Some of the black pockets were full, others were not. But when me look, man a tell me how much bag of cement use and me I say to myself, so boy, that not sound too right. Man them use 100 and hard bag of cement for, in a way. Me not watch no face because a house a build. If them say them have to use the cement them for build it, make them build it because guess what? It need for strong. People, the personnel, they started building, and while building, they adapted a method and a situation where they were now like every Friday at 1 o'clock they stopped working and they were speaking about money in a hand, bossy, a time for funds. When I and the contractor had an agreement that when the building reached a certain stage, it was time for a payment. When it reached another stage, it was time for the next payment, right? And this was the sort of arrangement we had. But the contractor started working on the impulse that his workmen had that every weekend them fi have money in a pocket. And because of this, I and the contractor fall out because he did not inform his personnel of how everything went where the work was concerned, and he was giving them the impression that I was the one who was sitting on the money when I was the one who was collecting the money from the National Housing Trust. And no money would be paid out to me for labor unless the labor was done. The contractor or contractors even came to me explaining that they had dead and bored and they were asking me to give them the money so they could bury their dead and then come back to work. And I must tell you that I was glad that the National Housing Trust did not give me any money because I felt sorry for them and thought to myself that I should just pay them based on how convincing they were. And when I looked back, I realized that I did not go into my pocket and take any money out to pay them. And it was the best decision that I ever made. Because even while constructing this house, it was while doing the construction of this house when I realized that NHT did not pay for excavation and they would not pay for the casting of the foundation. Apart from that, they stated later down in the building that they were not responsible for plumbing or electrical work. They were responsible for the area of the plant that they marked that the money could cover, but it would cover the construction of the building, not the electrical, not the plumbing, not the fixtures. Okay, so with this in mind, I was now realizing that in order for all these to be done, I have to now double down on work, making sure that I scrape as many hours as possible, making sure that whether I was able to get any duty or not, I was seeking them. At one point, I find myself working every day for 6 days, and every day I work 24 hours. So when I left here on Sunday, I was not coming back until Saturday night to leave here back Sunday evening. At that time, I must tell you that my wife got real upset because even though we were here in this house, guys, the floor was not done, windows were not all in, door was not all installed, and let me tell you, the electricity and the plumbing was not completed as yet because I was the one who was doing these and I did not get sufficient time from work to complete them. This was the way I was able to save money due to the fact that I found out all these things had to come from my pocket. Okay, guys, let me tell you, building a house or your own dwelling is not easy. It is a very hard task. It's a task that if you do not have your head on your body, you will never finish. And the money will be gone and you do not know where it went. Because the workmen will never be honest. They will steal your steel, they will steal your steels, they will steal your cement, they will steal your leather, they will steal your tools, they will steal your hose. After doing that, they will break into your house and steal your furnitures or your money if they had the opportunity. And I must tell you that I can give you 1,000,001 stories about issues that I have had with workmen. Now, I must say that I was speaking to you about the construction of this house, and even though I am not finished, I must tell you that the construction of this house caused me to be in problems with the law. During the construction of this house, I had a shed that I rented next door. And when I rented that shed, I had 100 bag of cement in that shed. I had a couple sheets of ply, a lot of 2x4 because the 2x4s were to do this the roof, and I had things like drill, saw, and so on in that shed. And 2004, we had an hurricane by the name of Hurricane Ivan. It was late 2004. I think it was somewhere down in September, somewhere there. We had Hurricane Ivan. If it was in September, it was about July to October, right? We had Hurricane Ivan. And the shed that I had all these goods in, the top went and persons came with their trucks and so on, and they removed as much of the material from the shed as possible. They removed almost the entire 100 bags of cement, because what they did was the ones that were on the top that water catch, they put those one side and left them and took all the others. They took the 2x4s, they took the tools, and they took whatsoever they wanted and they left. I must tell you that that set me back a bit, because after that, I then had to get the mason to count off what was taken, and I had to then go and do a report to make a claims from the NHT, due to the fact that the property was covered by peril insurance. Okay, so after making that claim, NHT gave me back some money for the material, and I had to find the rest of the money to purchase all the material. So they did not give me back the entire amount, but they did give me back some. I must say I was grateful, because I could have lost all the material there and did not get back anything. But at the same time, I was so glad that the peril insurance on the property, which means the land, was still in effect. So I was able to earn back some material in that way. Okay? At one point, after firing the first contractor that brought this house from foundation to lintel and beam, there was a period when the dwelling stalled. It stalled because I was working and I could not stop my job in order to just come and find myself a suitable contractor in the parish of Clarendon here, because as a Kingstonian, I do not know anyone from this side and I did not trust anyone that much. It so happened that I had to find mason from east side to come down here to do the work. And let me tell you, they charged me a certain amount of money that was more than what the work cost, due to the fact that they had to be transporting themselves here from Kingston. and they decide that they would stay here until the work was done. But before that, I must tell you that I also had a very, very horrible experience with one workman that caused me to, whoa, guys, to tell you the truth, I really would love to sit and give you the blow by blow details of what really took place while building this house. And that is why I say to you that listen, when constructing a house, it is not an easy task. You will hear people talk about killing goat and sprinkling blood and killing chicken and sprinkling blood. I do not believe in such things. And I must say, if you do not believe in such things, do not. One thing I learned about constructing your house, do not give any drunkard any work to do. If you should come to your property and when you come, your workman is speaking to you and rum is thumping you over, stop them from working. Get other persons to do that work because they will bend up your blocks, they will bend up your wall, they will do all manner of foolishness. You will never get any proper work done. I admit that at times some persons that drink work very good and quickly, but not all aspect of the work they are able to do in that manner. Now I must tell you that I will have to go through a lot of issues and situation that a person building a house will experience and go through in episode 70 of the Real Talk podcast. So please remember to stay tuned for episode 70 of the Real Talk podcast. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your post notification bells. So whenever time myself, Blind Visioneer, does anything, you will be able to get it. Okay, guys? Continue to have a wonderful rest of the day. Okay? Bye for now. Okay, bye for now, guys. Bye.